Welcome to the Nutritionist podcast. I'm your host, Ismail Zutat. On today's episode, we have Laura Hamilton, straight from Atlanta, USA. She's a registered dietitian and someone who has been suffering from the extreme ups and downs of dieting for the majority of her own life. Her passion is in helping women who have been riding that roller coaster and wants to get them off that ride for good. Her story is one that really stands out, and I think personally, if you are someone who goes through the same or have clients that are going through that very process, then this podcast episode is the one for you. Remember guys to like, share and subscribe, and also to check out Laura's links to her website, social media and all the other goodies which she has so gracefully provided. And finally, a big shout out to NutriAdmin for sponsoring this episode. We hope to continually make more and more episodes as the days pass into nights and the nights turn into days. So without further ado, take a seat back, grab your popcorn and enjoy episode 9. Welcome to the Nutrition podcast, or the Nutritionist podcast, should I say. Today, we have a very interesting guest, Laura Hamilton. Laura is a registered dietitian, and beyond that, she has lived the ups and downs of extreme dieting for the majority of her life. Laura's passion is to help women who have been riding the diet roller coaster with the aim of getting them off the ride for good. Her style focuses not on the excessive dietary restrictions or through burning out in the gym. To the contrary, her style provides her clients with a proven system that includes building sustainable habits and mental resilience. Laura, welcome to the Nutritionist podcast.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
It's a pleasure. No, it's pleasure's all mine. I wanted to touch upon a few things before we begin. I wanted to have a little bit of a background. So you have quite the work experience, and I wanted to start this podcast by asking you a little bit about your work history and your journey into building Empower Nutrition, which I believe is your brand. You own the business, and I wanted to ask essentially to delve into a brief summary of that.
Sure. Well, it's a long one, but I'll do my best to kind of shorten it up. So I've battled my weight pretty much my whole life. And so when I was growing up and going to college and all that, I studied health sciences, didn't know what I wanted to do, decided to become a personal trainer, realized that didn't make any money unless you owned a gym. And then
I understand those ones, yeah.
wasn't the life for me. So then I went to go get my master's in nutrition when I realized that nutrition was really the foundation of your health. Mm-hmm. Got my master's, became a registered dietitian, and then I have been working in the field for 13 years now. Wow. And along the lines though, I realized, and only recently actually, that I basically became a registered dietitian because I was still obsessed with my own weight and weight loss and trying to figure out the best way for me to lose weight. And so don't mind the pitter patter of my dog. But so I ended up working in children's healthcare, and I've been a pediatric dietitian for the past 13 years, but in my heart of hearts, I knew I wanted to do more. So in the past about 10 years or so, I have figured out the way that suits me and likely most women, especially women, but men too, to
the dog wants to be part of the podcast.
I know. Hang on one sec.
That's okay.
We're gonna have to get rid of this. Sorry, baby.
That's okay.
Of course, he chooses the crunchiest one. So I figured out that as long as you decide that you're gonna do the things that you're gonna do for a long period of time, you can create realistic expectations, achieve them, pivot when you need to, and constantly be improving. The idea behind quick weight loss and, fast diets and detoxes and all that stuff, I used to do those things. I used to do those when I even became a dietitian. But what I realized, over time was that it doesn't last. And then you're just chasing your tail constantly, and it's exhausting and annoying. And so I have built a foundational program that creates it empowers women to create a lifestyle that fits their weight loss goals instead of, trying to fit a diet into their, or trying to like fit their lifestyle into a diet that doesn't fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm assuming now Empower Nutrition has been running for how many years now?
So I've been in business for 4 years. I actually had a different name before. It was called Nutrition Now, but I don't think it really suited the mission that I was on. And so last year I changed the name to Empower Nutrition because that is the goal. I want to empower women to lose weight the way that fits their lifestyle.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you touched upon the notion that you're also a dietitian, and I'm assuming this is a role that you're still doing at this time as well. So I kind of wanted to touch upon the notion of that, doing two roles. I mean, being a registered dietitian, you work probably in a clinical setting as well. And obviously you run Empower Nutrition. That must come with a lot of extra stresses and strains. How do you manage to balance those two? And what advice would you give to those also seeking to start their own nutrition practice, but don't know how to, but don't have the sort of financial liberty to put all their eggs, to say, in that one basket?
Well, that is, it's not easy. I will say that, but I think you have to have if this is all you ever want to do, if you have the passion, that's going to drive the energy. It really, I mean, there's not every day is easy, but it becomes a balance of your time. It's time management. It is scheduling, prioritizing, working a lot of weekends. I work a lot of weekends, but the goal is not to do that forever. It just is going to take time. And just like weight loss though, this is so funny because I feel like my business really parallels my weight loss journey, is that you're getting a paycheck. And if you don't enjoy the paycheck you're getting, you can create ways to make your own money doing the things that you're passionate about. Will you be a success overnight? Maybe. If you think that everyone out there who claims to be a success overnight is a success overnight, they're wrong. They're just, blowing smoke. So it's really just hunkering down, building a plan, changing things as you go, but it's a lot of planning, preparing, getting help, asking for help, and just living for your passion. This is all I ever want to do.
I mean, this actually touches upon a really good question I had, and it's a bit off on a bit of a tangent, but it's a good question because I think it kind of encompasses, as you mentioned, how the two can be kind of synonymous, like a bit like your weight loss journey and the role itself, having your own business in that sense. There are moments, even though clearly from the way you're talking, you love what you do. But even then, have you noticed that, I know for myself, no matter what the role is, and I have plenty of passions, but sometimes I wake up and I'm just, there's no energy anymore. It's gone. So what would you say to those moments when you feel kind of, because again, you mentioned you work weekends, you work, so continuously. The fear of a burnout is so imminent in these sort of contexts. So what do you do? What tips would you kind of provide to those individuals who say they are fearful of those burnouts or have themselves gone through a burnout? And how do you find the energy to say, well, no, actually, screw the burnout, I can still do this? And actually, kind of, what's the word? Power through, I suppose would be the right word.
Yeah, powering through. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, how many times have you, I don't know, had been sick and you had to do something? I mean, there's a lot of times where I don't want to, I don't know, do social media stuff. I think that's like the bane of my existence. Like social media and me just don't mix that well. It's a game, but you do it anyway. So it's called adulting. Sometimes you just have to do things you don't want to do. But if you are exhausted mentally, just cannot continue, like take a break. I mean, with everything else, even with your workout routine or your diet, I mean, take a break, but decide it. Don't, succumb to it. Decide to take breaks, maybe plan for breaks, get yourself to a place where, you can relax. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. There can be some time for flexibility. You get to choose that path. Sometimes doesn't come as frequently as you'd like. But a lot of times what I tend to do is give myself a lot of credit for getting where I am right now, taking a step back and reprioritizing myself, and then getting back to work at maybe a more comfortable pace instead of trying to do everything all at the same time.
Absolutely.
Try not to fight off you can chew.
I absolutely love that. No, that's something that I've kind of I've faced a lot of throughout my time working. And I mean, I guess you say it so perfectly, adulting, just being a bit of an adult and then recognizing that you're going to have days where it's not going to feel great, but I suppose just powering through and recognizing that I suppose it's not about feeling good all the time. That's not life. And I suppose life in itself doesn't have that promise of happiness every day. You could be, happily living, plodding on through life with all the things you could ever want. But there are some days you wake up and it's just not giving you that same satisfaction as it always does. So just plodding onwards and trying to do your best with that. You mentioned actually, and it kind of perfectly rolls on to the next question, which is from the brief investigation of the work that you do, you stipulate that diet plans aren't necessarily a primary focus, and instead you sort of opt in for the sort of calories in, calories out method. So I wanted to know then, using that prior example of the work explanation and all these things about finding that sort of balance that works, what would you say are the primary advantages to your approach, and how does it translate to success for your clients?
That is an awesome question. I get that question a lot because I think almost dietitians are almost synonymous with diet plans.
Mhm.
And I myself, I don't really like to be restricted in almost any way. And
Mhm.
if I'm going to set a restriction, it's going to be something that's on my terms. And I want women to feel that same empowerment. So while I have quote unquote meal plans that they could follow,
Mhm.
the bigger and better idea is to actually teach them how to take the foods that they enjoy and make them work for them in their lifestyle. Because
Mhm.
if you are, no, let's face it, our lives are busy, chaotic. We want to travel. We want to do this. We live in a world of ever changing, ever growing opportunities and lifestyles and travel and job stuff. So how in the world can someone be successful if they only know how to do something one way?
Mhm.
Change is inevitable, right? Change is always around us. And if you can learn how to pivot and adjust, but do in a way that works best for you, that's phenomenal. If you learn how to choose one type of bread over another type of bread for perhaps health reasons, or you understand that, maybe we have a brand here, Dave's Killer Bread. I think it's really delicious. It's got a lot of fiber and has protein in it. It's a really great choice. But if
Mhm.
you don't like it, that doesn't mean you have to eat it just because I like it and I think it's an amazing choice. Choose a bread
Mhm.
that you like, but know why you're choosing it. Be cool with
Mhm.
that. I don't like to pigeonhole people to certain foods. If you want to be
Mhm.
more plant-based and you don't like as much meat, let's dive into that. I mean, you can build your own diet plan, and the best part is if you can be flexible, then when chaos strikes, you don't have to be like, well, I guess I'm starting over on Monday because
Mhm.
I wasn't perfect this week.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
relieving the perfectionism. It's enabling, teach a man to fish, right?
You should,
Like
yeah, I like
and
that.
how to do it, and they can
Yeah.
do it well the way that they need to.
I really like that. But then there's also the notion potentially of, let's say, for example, you have a client that approaches you and they have a particularly unhealthy diet. And what I mean by unhealthy in this context is and we know the Western diet, an excessive amounts of sugar and fat, and just to an extent where it's their fruit and vegetables are just not present at all. And then they would say to you, let's say, Laura, I'm going to be honest, I eat what I eat, but I do not like fruits and vegetables. I just don't. I can't do that. So what advice would you give to that person then? Because that is it's a good question to necessarily, because there's always that balance, right? We have to acknowledge that there are aspects of diet that we must include. As a nutritionist myself, I always find it difficult to tell someone whenever they tell me, hey, what's the best advice you can give? Like, if I don't know you, if I don't do any measurements, without anything, straight off the cuff, fruit and veg, just increase that and
Mhm.
everything else will come. But just that, increase that, and we will start off on the right road. So is that something that you also promote, or is that, how do you balance that, I suppose, with the method or the philosophy that you promote?
So, I mean, I think with the philosophy I promote, I mean, this works really well for someone in that particular, category, shall we
Mhm.
say. I mean, I deal with this a lot with the pediatric side of
Oh yeah.
my work, because parents come to me all the time and say, well, my kids don't like vegetables. Can you tell them to like vegetables? I'm like, well, I can tell them all day, but it's really you teaching them. But
Absolutely.
anywho, no, but I think you got to start with where you're at. Just
Hmm.
with anything. I mean, if you do not like vegetables, fine. Why push, a square peg in a round hole in the beginning? Why
Exactly.
not find out what you're doing now and how we can adjust what you're doing now just slightly? Maybe
Hmm.
just slightly. Maybe you're, I get a lot of people who are on the go, they're eating out, they're constantly eating fast food.
Hmm.
But what if we just, instead of eating the burger and fries, and you don't like all fruits, maybe you got like a grilled chicken sandwich instead of the burger, and we
Hmm.
adjusted for calories and fat intake, and you're
Absolutely.
still going to the same place, but maybe we just adjust the choice. And if that doesn't work, then we adjust the choice again, or we find different places to go, or we find ways for you to eventually bring something with you that's a little bit healthier, or
Hmm.
whatever it is. But I don't believe that anyone can't be a healthier
Hmm.
individual. It is a lot of choice. It's a lot of, making the decision to try something new or change. But inevitably, I'm not going to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. That's not my role. It's to educate and
Absolutely.
to figure out why are you blocked by this? Like, what has gone on in your past that has made you not like vegetables? Have you just never had the opportunity? Is it a texture thing? What's going on? And find out. And maybe as an adult, they'd be a little more open to trying something new. But I think everybody has the way that works best for them. Is just finding what it is and getting rid of all the I shoulds, or I think I have to's, or I watched someone down the street do it this way. I need to do it that way, but I can't do it that way. Who cares? Do it your way. Figure
Hmm.
out your path.
Well, that's wonderful. And it perfectly rolls on to the next question, which is to tell me about, well, what does a recent success story from one of your clients look like? Using what you just said. And there must have been some amazing success stories, I'm sure, with all the years that you've done this. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to hear about some of them.
So one of my one of the best success stories I've had is my client Adrian. So Adrian and I started working together in 2020,
Mhm.
right in the height of COVID, and it was right in the summer. And she had found me through I don't know if you have DexaScan is like a body fat analysis place we
Yeah.
have here. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to
Yeah.
be affiliated with DexaFit Atlanta, and so they sent her to me. We had a conversation, and she'd been to holistic dietitians and or holistic nutritionist, and just never had any success. And we had this conversation about, well, why are you like they actually made her restrict herself even more than she thought
Mm.
she even had to. So we had a conversation, and at the end of that conversation, I didn't even think she was going to call me back.
Mhm.
Didn't even think so. So then like a day or two went by, and she called me back. She was like, I thought about what you said about how, I might be over restricting myself, and I'd like to give it a shot. So we started working together, and she's a mom of two,
Mhm.
had gained, she's about 40 years old, gained about, 30 some odd pounds after her second child, and has been unable to lose it. So we started working on the same plan that I use with everybody else. And she lost 30 pounds in less than a year. It
Wow.
was about 9 to 10 months about, and then we've still been working together. So after that, she stayed working with me, because once you lose the weight, it's not just like, all right, I'm out, I'm done, drop the mic, we're good. It's
Mhm.
let's work on it. How do you live with this weight loss? How do you
Mhm.
maintain this weight loss?
Mhm.
And so we continued to work together for about 6 months, and she kept the weight off all throughout the holiday season. And then the beginning of this year hit, and I think everyone's lives have been changing even more in 2022, because we're a lot more free to travel and do things. And so she started gaining some weight back, and she gave me a call, and she's like, Laura, we need to start working. I need to start, committing to this again. And so we went through some months where she was gaining weight back and didn't quite understand why. But really the root of it was she just wasn't paying attention enough. She wasn't paying attention. She wasn't doing what she had been doing in the past with me, and was too in the maintenance kind of getting back into life mode. And so all we did was like, hey, Adrian, if your goal is to lose weight and get these last 10 pounds that you gained back off, then we just need to go back to the habits that you were in. And sometimes, like you said in the beginning, like it can be hard to get back into habits. But once you do and you see that result, it can really reinforce those changes to become even more habitual. We're going to ebb and flow, we're not going to just stay the same way all the time. But she has maintained for the better part of almost 2 years now, 30 pounds. Well, a solid year of 30 pounds down, and then another year of really maintaining that. And
it's the maintenance aspect, I suppose. You do touch upon that really well. It's the maintenance that's the much more difficult part. I have a friend of mine who is a really successful individual from a very early age. He really made it very, very quite, very well. But I suppose food was always his Mount Olympus. He really could not find a kind of a healthy relationship with it. And so he took on these really crazy, as you said, these crazy diets. And every single time he would do it and he would lose immense weight, and you'd be like, whoa, like you look completely different. Within a year, back on, but even more so. It's like the weight gain increased, but he actually weighed more than he ever had done before. And so this continuous repetitive cycle, and it was never like sustainable. It just never had that with him. And I suppose, do some people never achieve that sense of sustainability, and do some people need that focus throughout their lives, or is it something that can over time through just habit eventually become kind of ingrained that they don't even need to think about it? Will it, what would you say to that?
Well, I think that's actually the goal, right? Is to recognize the things that work for you, create habits around them, and make sure that they stick. Now, in her case, she was using a lot of like meal delivery systems and things of that nature to make her life easier. And she's 2 kids, a full-time job, husband, like she's busy. And there's nothing wrong with making your eating habits easier, right? Like do what works for you. If you have the financial means to do that, your time is money. So she got out of that practice, and we recognize that. And then her job got busier. We recognize the fact she got out of her exercise routine. But for most people who don't recognize those things, what happens is they just feel like they should be where they should be because they had done it before, or they want to be doing it. So they're thinking about it and they're like, no, but I am trying. But are you doing what you were doing? So I use a lot of data and analysis to say, are you where you were, or do we need to get back to where you were before? And having that actual visual information to say, you know what, I've been off my game for a little while, but now I know I can get back to it because I know what that looked like. And even if life has changed so much that you can't do it exactly the same way, how can we make it similar, better, somewhat easier, whatever? But it is like, it's a constant awareness. Awareness of what you're doing is the first step in achieving any goal that you set forth.
Absolutely. So, and it perfectly rolls on to the next one, which is, speaking of all the great successes, then what were the most challenging aspects of your role? There must have been clients that you thought, oh, you want to pull your hair out. This is just not happening, and I suppose in a portfolio, when you're trying to build success stories time and time again, and I suppose it's very important for a nutritionist, as it is for, say, a personal trainer, to have a portfolio of success stories. There must have been a few that just, you're thinking, I don't know if I can do it with this person. They are just not ready. Maybe it's a mental aspect. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe they're just clashing in terms of personality with me. Enlighten me with some of your more challenging roles.
I will say, I don't think I've ever had anyone personality-wise that's ever not worked for me, worked with me. I think, I have a good way of just feeling those out. But I will say I have had some people who have not lost weight in doing doing the things that I have asked them to do. But typically I've had a few women work with me who have done the extreme diets, who have lost 20, 30 pounds in a short period of time. And they come to me and they're like, but Laura, I don't want to do this anymore. How do I keep going? And unfortunately, it just didn't, for whatever reason, you know, they did not lose weight. And and I can't say that everybody is the same and they can just put this plug into this formula and it works. It's not like that. I mean, our bodies are different. Our experience, our lifestyles are very different. The amount of input you're giving me is up to you. So if you're telling me one thing but doing another, and all I can see is what I can see, that might be something. But these women were really working hard. And I think because I really also believe in slower weight loss. So I don't believe in the 5 pounds a week. I believe in half a pound to a pound a week. It's slow. So sometimes that can be not as fun. But yeah, these women did not lose weight. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out why. And
I mean, you perfectly touch upon a kind of a perfect example of my own time being a personal trainer. And it kind of goes back to, I had this one client, she was really, really, really dedicated. And honestly, I had never seen someone so hard working in the gym when they were there. And for the life of me, I could not put my finger on what was happening. She just was not losing weight in the way that I was expecting. I had to run the numbers over and over again. Maybe I'm thinking, I started getting into some crazy assumptions about, well, maybe just her metabolism's crazy. Maybe she's like a special case. And I realized, no, that's not possible. The maths has to check out. So I remember I did something which I kind of regret to this day. Actually, I always think back at it and I felt so bad. I sat her in my office and I closed the door and my arms were folded like this, and I said, someone's lying. Someone has to be lying here, and the numbers never lie. You're eating something. You must be doing something. And long and behold, I mean, as I said that, the words, you are lying. It was so tough. I'd never done that before. I'd never just called someone out like that. It was a one-on-one. She burst into tears. And she admits, hey, I've been eating a pack of digestives, which are these little biscuits and they're coated in chocolate. And she's eating a whole packet every day. And she'd been spacing it out throughout the day. And she thought, well, let's just have just one or two. And I was like, but how many are you eating? She's like, well, I buy a packet. And then she started running numbers and she realized she's probably eating about a packet or half a packet a day. And these were these are crazy numbers we're talking about in terms of like the number of calories they had. And it was like the biggest revelation. I was like, it was like the most bittersweet moment of my life, because I was like, I was right, but also I didn't want to be right. I really didn't. But, long and behold, we figured that out. And I mean, I had to admit to her that I can't continue on with, if she's there has to be transparency, has to be honesty. And I kind of recognize that maybe my style is not working with her, and maybe she's not working with me in that sense. And I think being cooperative is a trust aspect of, well, building that rapport, having that relationship where you feel that you can be honest with your trainer or nutritionist or dietitian. There has to be that accountability, and that, going to them and actually, because at the end of the day, if you're not being honest to them, then who are you being honest to? So that was a very tough one for me, and I really remember that as one of the most difficult conversations I ever had. And I'm sure, maybe, who knows, potentially with that client of yours with the weight loss, there's always that aspect of, they always want to impress. A lot of them really do, and I suppose potentially when you feel awestruck. I mean, talking to you, Laura, it's a very, if I was your client, there would definitely be a sense of awe around it. I'd recognize the journey you've been on, and I'd be recognizing to myself, hey, like, I don't want to let this person down. And so immediately, maybe potentially, that could also be an aspect around it. But these are the aspects of life, I suppose. We are human after all. Yeah. I wanted to discuss then a little bit of a side topic here, which is on your website. You mentioned you have a 12-week workshop. I wanted to delve a bit deeper and ask about the structure of that program. So I'll start off by asking, what is the 12-week workshop?
Well, so my 12-week workshop is called Learn, Lose, and Live. And it's centered around helping women learn how to lose weight while they live their life. And it is a combination of nutrition, fitness, and mindset, because at the end of the day, we are creatures of our past. We only know what we know in our bubble, in our, experience. So I kind of say a lot of times, like, we're just big children walking around with all these like past experiences. And sometimes we get those things lost in our head and we don't realize that we're acting on or doing things that are setting ourselves up for sabotage, but not realizing it because that's just what we do and who we are. So, yes, of course, for, I would say the majority of people, it is calories in, calories out. I set up an entire course on how to create a caloric deficit that should work for you. And then we test it out and we figure out if it's working or not working and manipulate it if we need to. But I also believe in working out or doing exercise that works for you. So we start with just where you're at with your exercise and then decide if you can do more or less, like what are your goals with that, and kind of marry those two aspects to say, okay, are these two numbers, these two things adding up and working for you with weight loss? And if they're not, let's change them. And then the mindset piece of it, I have a mindset coach and she is absolutely wonderful. She is another woman who has been and is still on her own weight loss journey. So she knows what it's like to battle all the battles. Her name is Erica Guerri, and she also has her own podcast too, called The Incognito Athlete. And she is a tremendous help in kind of opening up all of those doors to say, okay, so we're learning all these numbers and things and nutrition educational related methods, but how do you feel about it? Because you can learn all that stuff, but you could have a bad day at work and your car just automatically goes through the drive-through. You're like, well, how did that happen? How did I get from my office chair to the drive-through at McDonald's? Like, where was my brain? And so we talk about those things inside a group coaching call every week. And her and I are live discussing whatever questions you have, we talk about those with you. The whole course is really easy to get through. It does not take a lot of time, but it does take a commitment to paying attention and, really, really digging in about yourself. And it has been an honor to do it. And it's almost been 2 years now that I've had it.
That's amazing. I mean, what can people who enroll hope to achieve through this program then?
So I would say the majority of women that come through or come to me with this and enroll are the ones that have quite literally been through it and done it all. They have probably gained weight, lost it some sort of fast, quick way, and are ready to get off that roller coaster. Or they're women who have maybe they've been fine with their weight the majority of their lives and they've had a couple kids and now they're in their 40s or later and they're like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I don't even know where to go or what to do or what plan to follow. I need some guidance. I need some accountability. I need someone to help me through this. But all the while, these are the kind of women who are introspective. They're going to look at what they're doing. They want to know what kind of information is coming in and what it looks like. They like data. They like looking at, 2 + 2 = 4. They really like taking the actions and the results and seeing like what kind of progress they're going to make based on the information that they're putting into the analysis.
Oh, that is amazing. And I suppose then you mentioned and you touched upon this notion of group work or the inclusion of groups. And how does that help people, I suppose? Because I mean, I've seen a lot of group work, and I suppose the question is, how do groups help people stick to a program from your perspective?
I mean, you're not alone. I mean, while I might be, if I do work with women and men one-on-one, but the group there's something different about a group. There's just something magical. There's something inclusive. There's something motivating about a group of people who are doing the same thing, going through the same feelings, the similar situations, and understanding that you're not the only one suffering. You're not the only one that has a bad day and wants to eat a sleeve of Oreos. You're not the only one who could just jump out of their skin sometimes to go work out, but you need to, or you have kids, soccer, tennis, basketball, whatever, and you're just like, I can't even with all of the things. And to have a group of women who have such similar interests and goals, to talk with them every day and laugh with them and maybe even cry with them sometimes, and just know that, what, I'm not the only one going through this. And it's like, you almost want to help them so that you are also helping yourself, and you never want to let anyone down.
Absolutely.
And it's really empowering.
Yeah. And are these groups virtual? Are they in person? How do they work?
It's all virtual right now.
Wow.
And always has been. It would be really cool to have like a retreat someday. So add that to my list of things
That'd be
to work
cool.
on.
Yeah. Let me know when that ever happens. And if I'm ever in the States, I'll probably come down and see how it works, because I completely agree with your notion of groups. And what medium do you use at the moment? Is it WhatsApp? Is it like kind of, because I know some groups are based on just a communication within, so they could be like these little WhatsApp groups. Others are like groups on Facebook. So like these actual pages where people post their progress or whatnot. So what kind of medium have you seen works best, and what is the one that you've opted to kind of go for with this program?
So the program I run is through a program software called Kartra. So the actual program and details of that are in there. And then I have a group chat in Voxer. And Voxer is it's a text chain, but you can also do walkie-talkie messages, which is pretty cool. And then I'm still actually in the market for a better like group community house platform. I've tried Facebook before, but I'm just not a fan. Not a fan. There's just too much out there, and I want to serve my community purposefully and intently, and not have them feel overwhelmed by 12 million other blings and whistles and groups and things going on. I want to serve them so they know that they are important to me only. I'm there focused on them, and I want to house a more just a more inclusive place that serves them specifically.
So with the notion of the program being something quite virtual, then do you have clients from, let's say, who join the program from, different time zones, some from California, some others from New York? And I suppose that must be quite challenging at some points as well, trying to make sure that both groups kind of get the best out of it and get the most of your attention, while also not obviously running yourself to the ground with having to stay awake, ensuring that both sides of the continent get the sort of attention that they deserve.
Yeah, so I do have some in an hour away, 2 hours away, and then 3 hours away. But the 1 hour away isn't too bad. Obviously they can kind of adjust a little bit, but the good part about it is right now that when I go live with my mindset coach each week, it's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, and that's about three or 4 hours from the coast. So the people who are in that time zone kind of catch me after lunch. But the best part about it is that I record all the calls. So if you're in the program, you get access to the replays. If you have questions that you need a deeper dive in, I have ways for you to drop a form or question, and I will answer it on the call and let you know, timestamp it. Here's the answer to your question if you really need it. Or even better, you can just ask me in Voxer. I am available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and sometimes even after that. So I'm very accessible. And if it gets to be, too big and too much, well, I will adjust and pivot and find better ways to serve my community.
That's amazing. Well, no, it's amazing to hear about your program, and I hope it continues to grow, and I hope it continues to flourish, and more people hear about it. And I hope that this podcast can be a medium to kind of spread that word about it, because I think it has a lot of potential, and a lot of women out there deserve to be hearing about it. And yeah, I hope they can get the help that they so desperately desire and need. But to those who, let's say, can't access the 12-week program, what are the primary tips that you would give to those people, let's say, living in Sweden all the way, or just someone who's just too far away to, say, join these 12-week programs? And let's say someone in the UK where I'm based. And these primary tips, what primary tips would you give to anyone out there seeking to lose weight and to reach a sustainable, healthy weight, just from an outset, without the examination of their weight or lifestyle or factors? What would you say is the number one thing that can start the ball rolling, to get them on that right track? What advice would you provide?
Well, like I had mentioned earlier, awareness is really the first key. And I have 3 pillars of weight loss that I truly believe in. The first one is awareness, where you have to take a step back and say, okay, where am I at? What do I want to achieve? Where is my lifestyle allowing me to do things like we talked about before with the I like this, I don't like that. I mean, own your stuff. Like, what do you like? What do you want to do? Because you can only do so much, and we can't do everything all at once. So if the second pillar being habit stacking, meaning you're creating habits that you can then stack on one another, so that becomes almost like a no-brainer kind of situation over time. So we start with small things. Start with, if you're wanting to lose weight, but you are aware that you don't eat anything until you get home and then eat like 3,000 calories worth of food because you're starving, maybe that's something we need to change. So what can you do simply first to kind of get out of that habit? Maybe it's changing what you eat in that time period, or maybe it's finding a way to create a time and space for you to eat lunch. Something that's going to be easy. It has to be very easy, that does not have a lot of barriers, that you can do every single day and keep repeating it so that it becomes habitual. And then do the next thing. Maybe it's finding time in your day to actually move your body. You don't move your body at all. You get 2,000 steps a day and morning to night, and that is not a lot. So you need to move more, but the time is your issue. So where is it that you can find it? Maybe it's not even every day, but it's doing what you can do now. And then the third pillar is your mindset. And I believe in a curious mindset, one that asks the question, well, why do I not eat until 6 o'clock every day? I mean, instead of berating yourself like, oh, I'm the worst, I eat at 6 o'clock every single day, I'm not supposed to do that, that's making me overweight. You say, well, why do I do that? Because maybe there's a good reason. And if that reason is something you can change, then you can change it. But never, it's better to ask the question and be more understanding of yourself, rather than to blame or berate yourself for just who you are. Ask the question and make the change. So I would start with those 3 things and go from there.
Fabulous. These are amazing. These are the amazing tips, and I think I completely concur with them on every aspect of it.
Awesome.
You said something earlier on, not in this podcast, actually, to the contrary. We had a conversation a few days ago, about a week ago, about your mantra. And this mantra is something I wanted to bring up again because our audience deserves to hear it. And I really liked it. And I liked it so much, I wanted to include it in this podcast. You said, if you can't see yourself doing something for more than a week, you need to find a better plan. Do you still ascribe to that way? And if so, why?
I do. I mean, not even just a week, a month. I mean, a lot of people believe in keto or something extreme to lose weight. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. And listen, you might start keto and just love it. Well, you know what? If you love it, then you just keep doing it. But if you are fighting yourself constantly to achieve a certain goal because you think you have to do it a certain way and you don't like doing it, like some people say you have to lift weights just to lose weight. You don't have to. Is it better for you? Sure. But if you don't have weights, if you don't have the capacity to join a gym, if you don't have the abilities to do it, then why are you signing yourself up to fail? So if you are not enjoying the process, then you're not going to keep doing it. As humans, we do things that make us happy. We do not set out to do things that make us miserable. There's always a reason behind what we do. You have to figure out what it is and why you're going to keep doing it. And if you're not and you hate it, then you need to change.
Absolutely. We are pleasure-seeking beings at the end of the day. And I absolutely agree with that notion. If we don't have any pleasure in what we're doing, then it's going to be very, very hard unless if you're probably David Goggins to keep on going and doing it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I a lot of people ascribe to him, and I really, as much as I love it, I just recognize that we're not all that. None of us, not a lot of us are David Goggins in the mindset. And we need to be realistic. Yeah, we are pleasure-seeking beings, and we shouldn't push ourselves to such a limit, unless if perhaps you are a Navy SEAL and you wish to push yourself to that limit, then go right ahead. I mean,
and we need those people, but
we
those
do.
are very
Amen.
few and far between. And how many people go into those camps and come back out?
Exactly.
Very few.
That's
so motivation doesn't last very long.
Absolutely.
It's the determination and consistency of what you're doing that does.
And I'm assuming, you're living by that very vision of yourself. I mean, you've gone through a journey yourself, someone who struggled, notoriously throughout their entire lives with weight, to now be at this sustainable health range, and to feel as if, this is something I can do now, enjoy it. And, you clearly embody that, which is probably a great motivator to a lot of the clients that you obviously speak to. So I have a lot of faith in a lot of those clients in achieving their aspirations. So best of luck to them. I want to finish off this podcast on a little bit of a very bright note, actually. As a fun little thing I always like to do with my guests. It's from an old radio show that used to run on the BBC. It was called Desert Island Discs. And in this radio show, the guests, some can be David Beckham or whatnot, but all they are asked at the end of the show is they have to bring 3 albums to a desert island with them. Now, obviously, that's a music show, but this is a nutritionist podcast. So I just had to change the questions ever so slightly. And I want to know whether or not, so you're on a desert island, you can only bring with you 3 foods. What would they be and why?
That's a great question. So are we also considering beverages a food?
We can. I mean, this is an open-ended question, so much so that everyone has different answers, to the point where some have argued bringing water, which is a great thing, but others have said, well, there might be springs there and we can have fresh water already, and they have these assumptions. So whatever assumptions you wish to place on it, if the island has a fully functioning kitchen, so be it. But I want to know 3 foods that you cannot live essentially without, and ones that you would promote, to the notion of, for me, for example, a banana is my creme de la creme. I don't know why, I just like them. There's nothing to do with health. I just really like bananas. I've always liked them ever since I was a child, and so that's why I always say, if I was on an island, bananas would be my number 1. But for you, I want to know what your top 3 would be.
So so I really like snack foods. I really do. I love Cheez-Its. I love like chips and Doritos and things like that. I've always loved them. They are I eat something like that almost every day, but not the way I used to. So I would absolutely bring Cheez-Its with me.
Oh, good shout.
Cheez-Its would have to come. And then I love wish it ran through my body as my blood, Fresca. I don't know if they have that.
No, what is that? What is it?
It's picture like Sprite, but with a citrus twist, and it's calorie free.
Ooh, I'm sold.
Delicious.
Okay.
It's a diet drink, but I love it. And then I would probably bring a fruit, probably strawberries. And this is definitely not a picture of my mantra of a protein, produce, carb, but it's a desert island. You don't know. It's a
desert island. Hey, there's no dieting on a desert island. Yeah, exactly. You're on a desert island. It's hot, lovely weather. You got to enjoy it. Yeah. I always say that.
Maybe there's, a hidden bottle of vodka, and I can make a vodka fresca for those times where I'm, lonely and on my desert island.
A little bit like Jack Sparrow. You have a little, you have an underneath cabin where all the vodka is. I love that. For me, it would probably be flaming hot Cheetos. That would probably, instead of Cheez-Its. I had an exchange student who came to the UK when I was an undergraduate. She was from Mississippi. she worshipped those chips, man. She loved it. And I was kind of sold. She brought a packet from the US, and they're really the thing about the US and the UK, the formulations are ever so slightly different. And even though we have like there's this big thing in the UK where we have American sections on like our supermarkets where they'll bring in like American products, but they're not American in the traditional way because they have to conform to UK customs
Dietary.
and rules. Yeah, and rules.
Yeah.
And so some ingredients just don't make the cut, and some of those ingredients are just so tasty. I know they're terrible, but probably they're so tasty. When I had the American version, oh my gosh, it's so much nicer than the UK version. And not that I'm advising anyone out there who is going through dietary interventions to do that, but from a general health perspective, or from a general human perspective, from one person to another,
Yeah.
try them out. They are pretty good. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I didn't realize that there was such a difference in the versions, but
Oh yeah.
I mean,
It's
I'd like
huge. I
to
mean,
know.
there's even I think Skittles. They have that in the UK, and there's a super sour packet. There's a green one, but I don't know. In the UK, we have like there's just not a sour. And I'm crazy for sour sweets. Still
Yeah.
put my hands up, but yeah, and the US ones are so much nicer. They're so much more sour. They have I don't know what they add to it, but it makes the ones where your face go, ooh, it just catches you off guard,
Yeah.
those ones are the ones I love, and they just don't have that in the UK anymore. I think there was
Huh.
something to do with legislation to do with, so the UK is very I suppose they've become very health conscious over the past from a public health perspective, particularly for children. So for example, we've gotten rid of sugary drinks on the shelves, and so we still have them, but essentially we have this sugar tax that we've introduced probably about 10 years ago, or 5-6 years ago actually, and that meant all of our amazing sugary drinks, which again maybe is a good thing in the overall public health perspective. I actually agree with it from a policy perspective, but definitely from an individual perspective, I wouldn't mind a full sugary bottle from time to time. I mean, let's like we tried a good example actually here, the comparison wise would be, have you tried Mexican Coca-Cola versus US Coca-Cola? There's
Oh,
actually
no.
there's legitimately a taste difference, because I think in the Mexican one they add glucose syrup, like genuine glucose syrup, whereas in the US they add corn syrup. And so there's like such a difference that it actually tastes like impeccable in the Mexican version. And I
No
every time I
kidding.
have it, yeah, it's crazy.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't, they started doing a sugar tax in New York State. So all our
Ah,
state, obviously our states have different rules.
oh
And,
yes, yeah.
no one really likes it. I don't, honestly, I'm undecided on how I feel about that, because I
Mhm.
think, Americans we
What
have our
Americans
rights.
want to do. Exactly. You'll do as you
But
do.
yeah, but
Laissez-faire.
I do think it's an important notion to be educated on it better.
Absolutely.
And I don't know
Absolutely.
that that is truly the thing that's happening. So
I think I
um
completely agree on that one. That notion is something that I have been advocating a lot of. You shouldn't force a population into conforming to a healthy lifestyle. It should be, again, a choice. But that choice has to come with the correct education for them to make a well-informed decision. So,
mhm.
it's not fair that they just have it taken away from them. It's like saying, well, it's like saying to someone, I don't know, a good example. You can't read, so I'll just take away all the books. You can't read any more books. Instead of teaching
Yeah,
someone how to read, we'll just take away all the books. You don't
exactly.
need to
Yeah.
read. That's crazy. So
Yeah.
it's just something to remember and recognize. But
Or even just the price differences, but I could go on
yeah,
forever with
we
that.
could
Like
well.
how, a thing of strawberries is, I don't know, anywhere between $2 and $5, but a giant 2 liter soda is 99 cents.
I have no idea how they do that. I really don't. It's kind of crazy. Then again, I also recognize that I mean the
Mass
US are
production.
just, yeah, that's probably that. It is probably that. And also it's probably the transfer of fresh produce is never an easy thing. People always make the mistake of just saying, well, healthier products should be cheaper. And I completely agree as it should be cheaper, but if it could be, it probably would be. Do you know what I mean? That's always been my argument. If it could be, it probably would have been. And the reason it probably isn't is because to try and move some fresh strawberries from Maine all the way to Washington is going to take a while. And
Mhm.
the fear of them going bad or rotten or spoiled is just a risk for these companies. And so I suppose they have to choose the crazy preservative stuffs to make sure that, because they know that stuff won't spoil, and they can, there's actually a great study on it quite recently where they, well, it was not a study, it was like a report, but it was So an author made this point about how even in the most deprived areas of the world, you won't find antibiotics and you won't find the most, basic health medicines, but you will find Coca-Cola. You will. You just always will. The most remote mountainous regions of Nepal, you'll walk up, you'll find a shop, and they will have cola, but they will not have anything else. It's just crazy. It is nuts. Yeah. It is just nuts. And maybe if we use that to our advantage, potentially, the whole world could, apply that for more intuitive purposes, the transfer of medicines and better foods. You never know where it could go. But in any case, we digress. I want to take a moment to thank you, Lara, for being on this podcast. And I wanted to inform our audience that all the links to Lara's social media, her website, and of course, any other links that she wishes to post, including potentially the podcast from her colleague, will be provided within the description. I want to give a massive shout out to NutriAdmin for sponsoring this episode. Thank you to you. And most importantly, a big thank you once again to our star guest, Lara. We shall hopefully see more of you in the future. So if that is the possibility, we would love to have you on as a guest again.
I would love to come back. It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. And I wish you all the best. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Nutritionist podcast. Just to remind you, this podcast is brought to you by NutriAdmin.com, the all-in-one software for nutritionists and dietitians that allows you to run your practice efficiently and all in one place. NutriAdmin has been serving thousands of nutritionists, dietitians, and personal trainers since 2016. The software is rated 4.7 stars out of 5 amongst users. New features and improvements are being added all the time. To learn more about how NutriAdmin can help you cut down on paperwork, create meal plans, and handle your admin work more effectively and efficiently, please visit nutriadmin.com. We offer a 14-day free trial, and if you enter the promo code podcast50, that's podcast50, all in caps, upon sign up, you'll get 50% off for the first 2 months of your subscription. Thank you very much.